YNABers. My name is Jesse Meekum, and this is podcast number 362 for YNAB, where we teach you 4 rules to help you stop living paycheck to paycheck, get out of debt, and save more money. Rule 4, and as we're doing our review, our recap for the last few weeks, Rule 4 is to age your money. And our analogy of the afternoon of time well spent kind of breaks down at this point, so we're not going to use it. I'm just going to walk you through this idea of aging your money and explain to you what it is and what it isn't. When we talk about aging your money, we're really talking about letting your money sit. Just letting it sit for a little bit. My word. Leave it alone. Just let it sit. And don't touch it. Just for a little bit. Not too long. Maybe 30 days. Maybe 60 days. For most people, 80% of people, they let their money sit about as long as it takes to get another paycheck. And by the time that paycheck lands, they're pretty grateful for it because they've run out of money. And you're just living paycheck to paycheck. 80% of people do. That's very normal. It's just not encouraged. It's also normal to do all sorts of things that aren't that great, and we try not to do those things. So in this instance, we want to break away from the paycheck to paycheck cycle, and that means you just let money sit. So when you're setting aside money for a car repair or for your holidays or for vacation or for a new virtual reality gaming system, whatever it may be, that money's not being spent. And what we look at is a metric called the age of your money, where we're saying, look at that last dollar spent. When was it earned? When did it enter into this person's system? And I look at that. We look at a specific dollar and we say that dollar came in 4 days ago. So the person's not doing too hot. Or that dollar came in yesterday. Unless it's maybe your mortgage and you're just getting started with YNAB, it'd be scary to be spending dollars that you only had earned a day ago. Day-old money, using that money is stressful. You just got it and you're already using it. But if you think about letting your money sit for a while, we can get you only by following the first 3 rules. YNAB can get you to a point, and any sound financial system can get you to the same spot, where you have money just sitting. And we can get you to where you say, this dollar that I just spent, even on rent or some other very obvious obligation, that dollar, I earned that dollar 30 days ago, 40 days ago, 60 days ago. We have a lot of YNABers. If you look on, on the forums or on the Facebook group or in the YNAB subreddit, there are people that have, the next dollar they spend, they will have earned 200 days ago, and that's just the nature of the beast. Now, I had just with Christmas actually just happening. That was the example. I was looking at our age of money, and there was a dip, and the dip happens, and it's totally normal. So don't stress about it, but. The dip happens when you start to reach, spend some of that savings. So if you're saving up all year long, let's say you save, let's do a huge amount. Let's do $12,000. So you do $12,000 for Christmas, and you only have one kid. So you spend all $12,000 on that one kid. No, yeah, you do. You don't even get gifts for anyone else. It's just for the kid. And your kid is a delight to be around, He gets $12,000 for Christmas every single year and just mows through those gifts. It's just a pile of gifts. It's from the floor to the ceiling. The kid you can't even see him. You just hear him kind of rustling down inside there, and then eventually he emerges with a pony or whatever. So that's the situation we're in. And because you have this kid that needs $12,000 Christmases, you set aside $1,000 each month for that Christmas. And as you do that, your money ages. That $1,000 isn't spent, and then it isn't spent again, and then isn't spent again, and isn't spent again. So pretty soon you have this pile of $12,000. And some of that pile you just earned last month, but some of the pile you earned 12 months ago. And what happens is when you actually use all $12,000 on your delightful child, and you get rid of it completely, your age of money drops because you're now going to be spending money that's a little newer because you've dipped pretty far down into that pot of money that you've been accumulating. And what I'm trying to say is that is totally fine. So sometimes when people see their age of money go down, they're like, oh my gosh, it went from 100 to 80. What the heck happened? Everything's going great. And it's just because you spent some of that old money on an expense that you've been planning for. You were planning to spoil your child, or you were planning to buy a car, or whatever it may be. So in that regard, everything's working perfectly. Age of money is supposed to fluctuate. And at some point, it probably just kind of finds an equilibrium, whatever happens with you. I wouldn't shoot for a number. I would just see where it lands by following the first 3 rules. But eventually it just kind of sits around, 100 days or something. And if it's starting to be a lot longer than that, over several years actually, you may realize that either you're saving for things with years-long time frames in your budget, which is fine, or you're over-saving. And you've actually stockpiled so much that money will essentially not ever be used. And your age of money just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. At that point, I'd probably look at reprioritizing and say, you know what? We own a Honda Civic that's 20 years old. It's worth $3,000. We are sitting on $12,000 of car repairs. I don't think we would actually use it for that. And you take, you leave $2,000 in there, and you take the other 10 and you invest it in your, invest it in your retirement or something. Pay down a debt. You probably wouldn't have that much saved if you were working on debt anyway. You pay down on your mortgage or something like that. Set it aside for your kid's future. I don't know, whatever. But you wouldn't just have it sit in the car repairs category. That's my point. So if you see your age of money just keep climbing and climbing and climbing over a long enough time frame where you can recognize, I've probably captured most of life's expenses, most of their regular expenses in these last couple years, and it's still climbing and climbing, I'd probably look at some of those large balances and ask yourself if they're still, if there may be, what is over-sufficient a word? I don't believe it is, but maybe they are over-sufficient. So, age of money. How do you get it higher? Just keep following the first 3 rules. If it stays in a nice little sweet spot of equilibrium, great. If it dips suddenly and then you look back and you say, oh yeah, because we just spent on a new car, that's just meant to happen. If it keeps climbing and keeps climbing and keeps climbing and shows no signs of stopping, no matter what you're doing, it probably means your categories are over-sufficient. And in that instance, you'd want to redeploy and just ask yourself, what should this money do before I'm paid again? And that question where you're asking yourself about the here and now, the very moment with a big pile of money, that can actually be pretty illuminating. You realize, oh yeah, I don't need all that money here. I can redeploy it to investments or whatever. Hopefully that sheds some light on the age of money. It's a useful metric in that it shows you how close to the edge you're living. And when you're living far from the edge, or at least taken several good, healthy steps back, it is such a nice place to be. And I cannot fathom, I can empathize, but I cannot fathom with someone walking around with barely anything in their checking account. It boggles my mind, but we've been out of that situation, thankfully, for years and years and years. It's just not a fun place to be. Absolutely not. So I would encourage all of you, follow those first 3 rules. Look at your age of money every once in a while to give yourself a pat on the back. Don't stress when it drops suddenly and you just had a big outlay. Do stress if it's not climbing at all. That means you're spinning your wheels. It means you're not actually setting aside for true expenses per rule 2. All right, I think that's a wrap on those first 4 rules. Until next time, follow YNAB's 4 rules and you will win financially. You've never budgeted like this.